Hey everybody, good morning. Just making sure we also have Instagram set up here. So good morning, everybody. It is Saturday morning in Minnesota. It is 8 a.m. Central Time, and this is the Ask a Painter live show. And I'm going to do a quick audio check, if you would. I've connected a new microphone to my setup here, so just making sure everything runs well. Give me just a second here. We got some fairly slow farm internet, so I just want to make sure that everything is connecting here. See the feed coming through, and then we're going to get after today. So today's going to be an awesome show. Oh, here we go. Let's see if we got some sound. Awesome show. Oh, here we go. All right, there we go. All right, we're off and running. So today's going to be an open show. We haven't done one of these in a long time. I'll be taking questions from Instagram, which we're dual live streaming here. We'll be taking questions from Facebook. Any topic, any question you want to talk about. So I'm trying to think back in the over 5 years I've been doing Ask a Painter. There's nothing that I haven't been able to answer that people have asked about this thing, about either running a business or painting. So I would look forward to see if you guys can stump me today. Now, obviously, if you say, what is the wet mill application rate of Sherwin-Williams Treadplex gloss? I will not know that off the top of my head, but you'll probably get an answer like the technical data sheet is free and available on Sherwin-Williams website. So I'm happy to help out in any way I can. It's been a very, very interesting year so far. And we'll get into that a little more. But before we go too far, I will mention the PCA, the Painting Contractors Association. So very special event just happened. We convened a live in-person board of directors meeting for the national organization, PCA, the largest trade organization for painting contractors in the United States. And it was here in Minnesota. And the board is made up of some of the brightest minds and the thought leaders in the industry. Not the only thought leaders in the industry, but a select few of servant leaders who have raised their hand and volunteered for this thing. And the board is led by Director Jason Paris. He's the chair. I am the vice chair. And then we have a whole slew of awesome people you know and love from the industry. Now, typically, what you guys need to know about the PCA, the Painting Contractors Association, it is a board-driven association. The board convenes, we come up with very high-level strategy, we hand it off to the actual organization, and the organization executes on these initiatives that we create. And a couple initiatives that are in the works or nearing completion are Trade Best Practices, which is an inspirational series of videos to show people and showcase what we do and how we do it. Painter training is next. So final names are still kind of coming for a lot of this stuff. It started off as apprenticeship. The trade unions in the United States had a lot to say about that. So I'm not sure if it's going to be called apprenticeship. It'll likely be called painter's training, but it is the industry's most in-depth, comprehensive video training program combined with what's called an LMS, a learning management system. So basically an online learning guide that can track and you could follow and you could do all sorts of fun stuff like that. So that's probably slated. We just saw some demos of that. That's been ongoing for a while. Super comprehensive, super in-depth. And a new initiative that we actually just got approval to start some testing on is, again, an unnamed initiative, but we're centering around sort of the idea is business training. So again, training painters is one thing. That's one of the objectives, one of the things that we must do as the Painting Contractors Association. We need to be the standard bearer. We need to advocate for our trade, and we need to be the center of all standards and training. And I believe that extends. Jason Paris and I believe very deeply our passion is professionalizing this trade. So we should not only teach people how to paint, we should teach people how to run a successful business as well, because it doesn't matter if we get a huge influx of people into the trades and there's just a whole bunch of hot mess painting companies here waiting for them, they will instantly turn away and never look back. And I think that's kind of what's happening right now. So that's going to be a great initiative. We already have some modules made up. We haven't released them publicly, but you guys are going to be insanely impressed by that stuff. And yeah, we're pouring a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of time and resources from a national trade organization into this stuff. So I want you guys to know that that's coming down the barrel here. So, so today, open show. on Instagram, on Facebook. Type your questions, anything you want to talk about. It doesn't necessarily have to be a straight question. It can be a topic you'd like to talk about. And one of the things that I would like to make an ask for from everybody on social media is I'd like some of your favorite interview questions. We are about to embark on one of the largest recruiting efforts this company's ever done. It's going to be a series of somewhere between, 8 and 12 positions in the company that we're going to attempt to fill over the next quarter. Yeah, and when we do this, we do human-centered experiments in the business where we try something, we gather data, we control the variables, we earn or learn. We either earn something great from it or we learn, and sometimes it's both. And recruiting and training are something that, universally, when everybody raises their hand in the industry, when you ask them, like what's the biggest problem in the industry, they say, they say, there's no good people out there. And I would say, well, statistically, that's not true. So why aren't we having a very easy time of recruiting and training? So we are constantly improving our training process. We're constantly improving our recruiting process. And one of the things that I used to be a firm believer of, I've since modified my stance a little, is I used to think there were no good interview questions. And I would always say that because if you take most of the known interview questions that you can ask somebody, people give you stock businessy answers. They don't tell you anything of use. And interestingly enough, and this is something I talk to Noah Cantor a lot about, because Noah Cantor runs one of my favorite podcasts, Advice from a Young Tradesman. When you interview somebody, or when you ask somebody a question, I'm always amazed at how people don't even answer the question. Think about this next time you're talking to somebody. So think about this when when you're listening to the next podcast. People will ask a question, sometimes, very effectively, sometimes ineffectively, and the respondent says something and it feels like an answer, but if you actually write it down, it's a non sequitur. It doesn't even have anything to do with that sort of thing. So, okay, we got some questions coming through. So that's a long way of saying I used to just shun interview questions, but I met somebody in this last year who actually has a very unique interview question, Chris Elliott of On It Painting. And I was inspired by not only him, his wife, and his company, but also by his interview stuff. So I'm incorporating a few of his things in to see if I can squeeze some real juice out of recruits and applicants in my business. So I'm open to the idea. I should never, I shouldn't take such a firm stance on interview questions suck, just get through it, and you got to do a sniff test on somebody. I shouldn't do that. I should really have a process in there in place. So I will. Let's start going through some questions on Facebook here. So Tony Joseph, good morning. Aaron King, my good friend from across the border in Wisconsin. Good to see you, my friend. Joran Vanderberg, good morning. Joran, what time in the day? I believe he's from the Netherlands. What time of the day is it in the Netherlands right now? I'd be very curious. Brian Reese, this is very specific. How do you get Centurion vinyl sealer primer solvent spray dust off a Trex deck? Wow. Sounds like there's a story behind that one. So number one, the theory. So there are just answers. Use this to do this. And we can talk about that too. One of the things I'm interested in is a theory of how to do this stuff. So you can apply a theory to it. So my theory, whenever you want to get rid of some sort of coating on a surface that you don't want to damage, I start off with a continuum of stuff. Number one, water and soap with non-abrasive stuff. That's obviously not going to hurt the substrate, but it's probably ineffective largely with solvent-based Centurion. So then I would move up to denatured alcohol or rubbing alcohol. And normally 90% of all coatings that you want to remove off something like that, alcohol is the best. So alcohol typically does not harm the surfaces. It may leave a little white haze, but it's nothing that a little soap and water and a scrub brush can't get rid of. Now, once you leave alcohol, and so, I should say this, sometimes between water and alcohol, I'll throw in a little bit of Windex. Windex, we've actually cleaned kitchen cabinets with because it's got that alcohol component in it. It flashes, but it also has a little bit of ammonia, which helps with the cleaning. And we've never had any issues with fish eyes or anything else. So sometimes we'll throw in some Windex, some high strength Windex. Now, once you go past water, Windex, alcohol, denatured alcohol, rubbing alcohol, you start getting into things that internally we call hot solvents. So you can start doing paint thinner then, but as we know, paint thinner is largely kind of like what I would consider inert, which is it doesn't really melt other coatings. Like if we were to take this table, which is made out of reclaimed varnished wood here, I don't know, we can see, yeah, reclaimed varnished wood, oil varnished, alkyd varnished wood. If I were to take mineral spirits and leave a puddle on here or scrub it, it's not going to do a thing to this finish. And largely, it won't do a thing to lacquer finishes either. It's not a solvent that's hot enough to eat through something and get to something else. But sometimes on a coating that's not a film forming coating, or if you have glue residue that's not a hard shell film forming coating, it'll eat through that. Now, the problem is on a film forming coating or a shell, it's not going to be that effective. So then you start stepping up into other stuff. And so my continuum, water, Windex, alcohol, paint thinner, turpentine, whatever. Once you go past that, this is all a feelings based continuum after this. I have not compared the chemistry, the ball and stick models of these things, the volatility of them to come up with a scale where this is less volatile than this. This is a feelings based thing. The next thing I would do is lacquer thinner. You could argue that a lot of these have the same hotness or volatility, but this is the continuum that we walk through. Lacquer thinner would be the next thing, but God, you have to start testing it on certain areas. I would be very leery of Trex Deck. You can discolor that stuff pretty quickly. It is actually a porous material. It's a whole bunch of wood pulp, resins, plastics, glues, binders, stuff like that. You can modify the look of it pretty quickly. So I would be very careful with that. Lacquer thinner, I would probably go to acetone next. I would expect to alter the surface of Trex decking, dumping acetone on there. If you take lacquer thinner or acetone and put a little puddle on this desk, it will instantly curl up the oil varnish. It is a hot solvent. It's something we consider hot, and it will eat through. Interestingly enough, almost every dining room table that we take into our shop and refinish is because nail polish remover has been dumped on it by somebody. Nail polish remover is basically acetone. Now, there's safe versions of acetone now for that purpose, but it's still there. Now, once you get past this, I would expect to probably replace Trex decking if you use any chemicals after this. So now you're into the methyl ethyl ketone, the MEK. You're into the, I'm trying to think what else would be xylene. Xylene is, I don't want to say scary chemical, but it's a pretty amazing chemical. It's super hot. When I have a sprayer that somebody would leave to be that left dried up, like that, I soak stuff in xylene, and that stuff is pretty lethal. If you take chemistry gloves, you go to a hardware store and you get we're not talking latex gloves or butyl gloves. We're not talking the yellow dish gloves. We're talking the black rubber gloves from a hardware store, chemical gloves that you use to apply, when you're dealing with farm chemicals, automotive chemicals. You put those on, you dip your hand in xylene. Those things lose their elasticity. They start blowing up, they decompose and things like that. It is pretty crazy. So you got to be careful with that stuff. Anything past paint thinner, it's very likely you're going to have to buy Trex decking. I would use that stuff. Now, there is that wild card of goo gone, goof off, things like that. We've had reasonable luck with that stuff. I would be very interested to see. I would be very interested if you're not willing to share, Brian, the story of that. That sounds like, it sounds like an interesting story behind that. And also I'd like to follow up and see what worked, or if you did it already, let me know what works. But that's the theory of how I think. I start non-hot, cool solvents, and I work towards hot solvents. And at a point where you start altering the Trex decking, you stop and you say, well, I think we're at replacement at this point here. So, oh man. Rodrigo, good morning, Nick. Mill thickness in latex paint, yes or no? So I would like to know, I'm going to need to know a little more about that. I would need to know a little more about your question, Rodrigo, to advise there. Thomas, Solvent, Seth Hostetter. Good morning from Kansas City. Urine, 3:10 in the afternoon. Oh, nice. That's super convenient. Where's the suit? So yesterday I did want to put on, I wear paint clothes almost every day. And I did want to act the part. When we're at a national board of directors meeting, I did put on a suit and a tie, give or take. And it's just sort of professionalization. When you look the part, there's a very high likelihood that you'll act the part. Interestingly enough, since we bring that up, the Ask a Painter Live Summer Retreat that happened a couple weeks ago, and we'll get to the questions on IG here in a second. We actually talked about the scientific way to get more grit, because everybody has a certain level of grit. The people who are most successful in most things, most professions, have a super high level of grit. They pick something which is called a superordinate goal, which is a goal to rule all other goals, what we were joking about. But it's a goal, it's a 5, it's a 10, it's a 20-year goal. And people live their lives, they alter their lives, they sacrifice in some way in order to keep their eye on that goal. And they can grit through and be consistent and persistent all the way through that stuff. And one of the ways that you can actually get more grit and be more effective is to look the part. I wear painting clothes. I wear collared shirts most days, because I feel that if I were to just wear shorts and a t-shirt, I do not assume the role of master craftsperson, business owner, entrepreneur, things like this. This is the culture of my company: cream colored things, a little better uniform, a mix of craftsperson and sophistication and trust and things like that. And scientifically, if you read the book on grit, it's a scientific based book, you can actually alter the amount of grit you have. They did a whole bunch of scientific tests where they took, this is actually interesting, it's very specific to us in this trade. They took a bunch of high school students and they divided them into 2 groups. And one of them, they gave white smocks and said, "You are doctors." The other ones, they gave white smocks and said, "You are decorative painters," which is really interesting. And then they gave them the same tests. And the ones who were told that the white smocks were doctor smocks did better than the painters. So interesting sort of scientific stuff. Now we can go on feelings, and you always hear, look the part, act the part, but there's actually science behind it. It's actually kind of cool. So let's go through a little more. Oh, here we go. Here's a good one. Rail Correa. What is the best pump gun to spray with fine paints of Europe? So interestingly enough, fine paints of Europe, there's oil-based and water-based. And I talked to 2 of the finest craftspeople in the country who know way more about this than me. Zach Kenny, I believe he uses SATA guns. He's got some crazy Wagner pumps. They're dedicated pumps. He's got HVLP guns, insanely fine-tuned machines when he's spraying solvent-based. But in San Francisco, one of my best friends in the industry, Dan Ross, he operates with fine paints of Europe quite a bit, and he does not do solvent-based because he's in San Francisco. And I visited a restaurant he did where he did this beautiful blood burgundy red ceiling, high gloss ceiling. And he used an airless gun because it's a water-based thing. So it depends on what you're using. And it's kind of funny. When I went to Zach Kenny's first ever ZK finishing school, I sat in on it. And I took a bunch of notes. We actually developed a standard operating procedure, not developed, I shouldn't say that. I wrote down his standard operating procedure for gloss to use in my own company. And we had a dinner with John Leahy, the owner of Fine Paints of Europe. And I had threatened Zach Kenny that I was going to try a gloss oil project with an airless. And sort of half joking, but sort of like, I think we can make it work. Yes, it's going to come with its foibles and its follies, but so does regular gloss oil stuff. So, but yeah, it's something I always jokingly threatened to Fine Paints of Europe and to Zach that I was going to give a try. So yeah, let's go here. Ooh, here we go. Oh, Aaron Smith, man, here's a question. What's the one thing you love about our industry? This is something I dwell on every single day when I wake up in the morning. This is kind of like an end of the show conversation, but we're going to take it right here. This is the American dream right now. Whether you know it or not, there is no barrier to entry into this. You can get into the painting industry with stuff you probably already have. You don't need to buy paint. You don't need to pay for labor unless you have a job, which is great. So this isn't a bank where you have to buy a building. You have to get a whole bunch of capital. You have to start marketing that capital, selling that capital, things like that. You can just start. You can just start this. The margins aren't bad in the painting industry compared to other industries. And basically, with a little bit of grit, which we just talked about, and effort, you can make money. There's a couple ways to solve problems and make money. One is with money and one is with effort. And when you start off, technically, theoretically, you don't have a lot of money, but you got a lot of time, you got a lot of effort. With nothing but your physical labor, you can create a tiny little freedom machine. Freedom is different to everybody. For me, it's the sort of ability to do the choice. Having the choice to do or not do something is freedom. Forced to do something, you have less freedom, give or take. Now, that doesn't mean that everything you're forced to do is bad, but it does make things a lot more fun. Between the ages of 10 and 18, I was forced to paint with a family business. I did not enjoy it. After that, when I chose to paint it, I loved it more than anything else. I deeply enjoy this trade. If you want a path to financial freedom, you could make a great argument that right now we are in one of the most unprofessionalized industries in the United States. Statistically, Jason Paris and I laugh about this all the time. I think the only things that are less professionalized than the painting industry is like the hunting industry, which is largely there's not systems and processes. You can't sell game meat. It's just a recreational sort of thing, which is kind of funny. There is no competition with what we do right now. Our only competition is our own abilities to execute our business plans. And if you have a couple brain cells to rub together and a minimal amount of grit, and you get over a few limiting beliefs, you can truly create the American dream. One version of the American dream is to start up a business that creates cash flow so you can buy real estate. We live in a country with a capitalistic based economy or economic system. It's called capital. It's called capitalism because people are rewarded when you own capital. Capital could be physical assets like real estate or a business that you can sell at the end. So if you truly want freedom and wealth, you can make a great argument that start up a painting company, get some good margins, hire some people, grow it, hire a leadership team, get that business to operate so you don't have to be in it every day, the freedom to do or not to do something, so that you can devote that capital to other things ancillary to that business to create the freedom later in life that you wouldn't have otherwise by being an employee somewhere. That's what I love about this industry. That's one of the things that I've been focusing on now. But one thing I've focused on for the last 25 years is the craft. I find some freaky deep satisfaction in restoring things, making things better, improving things, painting things, coating things. There is something deep inside me, some itch that gets scratched when we take an old piece of something, an old piece of siding, and you lay on that first coat of primer and you fill every pore and you smooth it over with a beautiful, expensive, fine brush. The way it dries, the way it looks, the way the paint or primer feels coming off a brush is so deeply satisfying to me. I just love it. I can't get enough of it. Back when I was in the field 100% of the time, we would work 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., me and the crews. And at the end of 10 hours, I could I'll just do another board. I'll just do one more board. I'll just do one more peak, one more thing. It was so deeply satisfying to me. I just love it. We about 10 years ago, I bought my first sprayer. And then after all that prep is done, crazy prep on cabinets or trim in a house, and you lay down that first coat of enamel, higher risk, higher reward, so deeply satisfying. And you see it drying, you see it flashing where there's a little cloudiness, where some is a little bit wet, some is a little bit dry, and you slowly see that gradual, and it sucks, it evaporates and sucks down to this beautiful satin, sophisticated finish. That is something that I have only grown in appreciation and satisfaction for. And that will never go away. So a lot of times I struggle with my passion for the craft because I have to devote a lot of my time to business. And so I try to just scratch that itch every once in a while and do that. So, all right, let's go through. Let's see if we got anything on IG here. All right, Jovial Painting, getting ready to order a Tritech sprayer. Which one do you prefer? So I do not own a Tritech sprayer, but my good friend Correa does, and she swears by all of them. So I would say I'm always in favor of the smallest airless pump that you can possibly buy to get the job done. You don't want to be carting around some big old monster. So I would say the general guidance, the theory behind airless is get the smallest one you can, but I would talk with Corey Leister. She knows and loves them, and she actually is a dealer for them as well, or at least a distributor. So she has much more subject matter expertise than me. I would definitely talk with her. All right, let's see what else we got here. Mike Danahy, good morning, my friend. Here we go. Rodrigo, in Brazil, mill measurement is only used in industrial protective coatings. Rodrigo, it is here too, honestly. And even most commercial and industrial painters don't even rely on it. The pros that I know do have very tight systems where they have mill thickness gauges and actually test the paint by dipping that thing into the paint. But interestingly enough, I got into a very interesting conversation with a painter through DMs this last week where this painter offered a question saying there's a huge debate in the industry of what 2 coats on an exterior of a house actually is. He was positing that 2 coats done, you spray the siding this way and then you cross hatch it wet on wet like that. Technically, that's 2 coats. And he says there's a huge debate. Most people think it's that. There's other people that think you spray on a coat and then you let it dry and you do another. And I said, it is not a debate. 2 coats is a technical thing. Fire up a thing called a technical data sheet. It's free. It's available for every single coating you could possibly buy in the US. It will tell you how wet to apply a coating, how long to let it dry before you apply the next coating. There is no debate. A wet on wet crosshatch thing, that is 1 coat. It will always be 1 coat. It's always been 1 coat. It will never be more than 1 coat. It is not a debate. So all this stuff, these feelings-based things, well, I've been doing this, I've not had any failures. Good. If you've not had failures, good. If you're providing good value to the client, do it. And it doesn't fail, good. But you cannot look me in the face and say that a wet on wet crosshatch is 2 coats. It is not. It never will be. And if something goes wrong, the paint company will definitely not stand by it. That's all fine. That's all technical stuff. I always think about it in a different way. If you were paying $12,000 to paint your house and your painter said that's what your 2 coats were, would you prefer wet on wet crosshatch, or would you prefer to put on the proper wet mill thickness, let dry for a certain amount of time, usually 4 hours for an exterior paint, and then another coat applied? I think I would have a lot of questions for you if I was paying a lot of money for an exterior paint job and you were going, oh no, 2 coats is wet on wet. So again, there's some things I don't take a very strong stance on because I'm open to the idea that I'm not perfect. I don't have all the information. And what I do is not the end all and be all. But that's the one where I'll take a stance on. That is not 2 coats at all. So yes, when we get into a debate like that, Rodrigo, that's a long way of saying, Rodrigo, that I use that here because there is that standard. Like there is that thing for residential paint. For PVA primer, there's that. For every single residential coating, for duration wall paint, for Benjamin Moore Scuff-X, for cover stain oil primer, all that stuff has that. Fine Paints of Europe has it too. It's really not a debate. It's there for you. Most people don't know technical data sheets exist. So honestly, Phil Klein, my good friend from Iowa. Phil was on the retreat with me, and man, that dude is one of the deepest thinkers I know. And the wisdom in that guy is amazing. So Phil, good to see you this morning, and thanks for coming on that retreat too. All right, Brian, here we go. Great info. That was what I was thinking. In other words, cautious continuums and the new SOP analysis on preventative tactics. Oh, very, very technical wording. I love that, man. We have tried denatured alcohol and everything below. Haven't tried acetone or any other hot solvents. Team forgot to cover the small Trex area right outside the new kitchen door. Oh, no, man. Great opportunity to optimize the process, dude. I hear you, man. And one of the things that people ask me, and I think you use a similar system, but we got those beautiful high velocity, either yellow or orange fans with a flexible ducting. A lot of times, especially in winter too, we vent those right outside the house. And people ask, well, hey, you got all this wet stuff and it's going right outside onto the deck. What do you do? That's why we put in some of those furnace filters or some sort of filtration to do that. But I'll be honest, a lot of the times that stuff, that oversprayer particles, by the time it's been in the air and goes through the high velocity fan, it's usually dry to the touch and dry fall-ish, give or take. So, oh, Joran, here we go. Quick question. I'm a painter for 26 years now. The outside weather is a big thing here in the Netherlands. How is it on your side of the pool? And how do you guys make your planning between the customers? Listen, man, Oh, geez. This is a topic we didn't have to, we got to call a special production meeting with my production team because of this. We have what's called the shoulder season in Minnesota, and we are not unique in this. We're the upper Midwest, give or take. A lot of the northern United States deals with this, and I'm sure the Netherlands is as well. I'm sure you have a little different climate just because your proximity to ocean and stuff like that, or more oceanic weather systems. But up here, we basically have between May and September. Those are the real exterior months where the nighttime temps are good, the dew isn't too bad, and temperatures are okay. But we have shoulder seasons, which are April and October, and it can snow in both of those months here, or it could be 80. It's a crazy thing. So right now we have this crazy thing where we're trying to finish up our exterior season, but we have the variable of weather. So right now, the reality is this is a very unsatisfying thing to say to your potential clients. When a client says, "Hey, are we going to get our house done this year?" You say, "Have a seat. There's a list of 7 variables right now that we're dealing with." And we actually wrote all these down. And this is a stock list that we keep for my company. But there is staffing. There is COVID. We have 2 crews out that had some sort of exposure to COVID. We have 2 of our craftspeople out on, they're deployed in the National Guard. We have school starting. We have family issues. We have deaths in the family. We have weather. We have dew that sometimes hangs around till 11 or 12 in the day. We have wind, which sometimes we can't spray outside. We have rain. We have the variable of jobs adding on or becoming shorter. So a lot of our jobs, we have one job that's a 6 or 7 week job. They're on their 3rd color change right now. And yes, we're doing change orders and all that other stuff, but it's not getting the job done any sooner. So we may have lost 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks with 2 of our exterior crews on that. That's another couple potential houses. So when we sit down, what the client wants to hear is, absolutely, we'll get to you, no problem. As a matter of fact, we'll start in 2 days. But we never promise something we can't deliver. And I believe honesty is the best policy. And when we contact a client, we just say, listen, here's what we're dealing with right now. Right now, based on our queue, you're slated for a 50-50 chance to get done this year. There's 4 other houses in front of you. But here's the variables we're dealing with. If you can tell me what each one of these variables is going to do, I'll tell you the exact day we're going to start and when we're going to finish. But since we don't know this, here's the information I have now. And that's how we deal with it. And it is what it is. And we've been getting a lot smarter about this, where my right hand in the business, Holly, my production manager, she draws a hard line and says, you know what, Nick, we can try to push and do exteriors in October, but it's not efficient. There's dew, there's frost, there's all this other stuff. And if we start a house, we have the risk of not finishing it. So I think we should cut our season off a little sooner, be certain, and it'd be better to be honest with clients and say you can't get to them than drag them along and keep them on the line. And when you can't, so yeah, that's sort of a thing we deal with. And there's no magic app, there's no magic answer, there's no magic thing you can do to guarantee your client a thing like that. You know that. You've been around this industry just as long as I have. So, Jim Davis, any way to get your master's classes without being there? Can't travel to Cali, live in upstate New York. So, here's something I deal with all the time. I was in your area for an entire week doing master's classes, and maybe our schedules lined up, maybe they didn't, but I do not offer these things electronically, digitally, virtually, only because I'm not opposed to it, but the conversation is so much different in person, and we go so deep on some of these subjects. It's so different. You have to be there. There is a reason why we convened the national board of the PCA in person this last week. It's different when you're in person. It's not all the difference in the world than virtual, but there's some things you have to do in person. And right now, my feeling is the value is in person. Honestly, if somebody checks their phone, if somebody checks Slack, if somebody sends out some email when they're watching a virtual thing, or they got to get some lunch, or they use the bathroom, you're lost. And these master's classes demand attention and bandwidth, and we all need it. So, Jim, I'm not opposed to it. Maybe we can talk offline. I do help people offline all the time with specific questions. I just don't hand over my master's classes. So, Joran, I love it that we are everywhere and we need a lot of people. We have a very wide set of skills every day. Absolutely. Justin Fry, is enamel a type of product or a measure of hardness? So, interestingly enough, we use a lot of terms like eggshell, like varnish, like enamel. technically, somewhere those are scientific terms that mean something, and there's a delineation of what they are and what they are not. In our industry, eggshell means a whole range of stuff. There's a degree of shine level where when you shine a light at a certain angle, how it refracts off that surface determines whether it's flat, matte, low luster, eggshell, this and that. But it's not a number. It's not like on a scale of 1 to 100, eggshell is 38. It encompasses like 15 to 50, give or take. So you can have all sorts of stuff. How I discuss this with clients, and this is sort of I say enamel because I want to signify that it's different than shiny wall paint. When I say varnish, I want to signify that it's not lacquer. But technically, if you read the Wikipedia or the Webster's Dictionary definition of varnish, last time I checked, it feel like it's more vague, like it's just a film forming something. It's a coating, it's a protective layer, it's something. So you could, if you want to go by crazy definitions, you could call a lot of things a lot of things. Internally, we love the word enamel because it's a little bit historic. It signifies something hard and shiny to me. And actually, it's a touch word that a lot of my clients use as well. So yeah, I'm trying to think what another, so when we talk about painting cabinets and painting trim, I'm very specific with, we don't say paint when we do that because I want people to know that we use enamel. And for the people that don't use enamel, then they ask the question, well, what's an enamel? And that's the purpose of that, is to get people curious so we can have that conversation about why we differentiate like that. So Justin, thank you for the question. Let's get back to, oh man, I see Green Mountain commenting here. Oh, we got some IG stuff coming through here. Oh, here we go. JC Finishing, Minnesota. What's the best value we can provide our contractors as paint store managers? God, I love this question. Relationship, trust. That's the thing you can do. The thing I value most about my paint reps is not necessarily like, people use paint reps and store managers in two ways that I found. I went golfing with paint reps before, and I see the text and the calls that they get all day. People ask for two things. Give me more off a gallon of paint and come stand in front of this homeowner and tell them I didn't ruin your house. And that puts these reps and these store managers in some very tough spots. So I will say this, you guys are doing a good job, especially with material shortages. You guys are getting beat up unreasonably. It's not your fault. Heaven forbid. The test is, do you guys want to sell more paint to painters? Yes. Does Sherwin and Benjamin Moore want to sell paint to painters? Yes. Do you think that they are holding paint from us because they don't want to sell paint? That is the silliest thing I've ever heard. So all this vitriol, all this hatred towards these companies right now, it is so silly. Do you think that we don't want to paint houses? Do you think that they legitimately don't want to sell us paint? That is ridiculous. So I will say it's easy to find boogeymen and enemies, and people love it when it's a paint company, because we can see that paint invoice, we can see our statement at the end of the month, and we have to pay that bill. I would turn that inward. I would say this, we want a relationship, and your best contractors, your best clients, I bet you are more interested in a relationship than they are in price. Price will come after a good relationship, after a base of trust has been laid down. One of the things that I do, work with my store managers and my paint reps, is to always have a reciprocal relationship, which is that what I never want to do, because I've seen this happen 1,000 times, is, hey, you paint rep, I'm going to beat you up over price. All I'm going to do is ask. I'm going to ask you to tell this client that I didn't screw their house up. I'm going to ask for more money off of paint, and I'm never going to offer you anything in return. Last year, I made a plan to grow this company, and I went to my paint rep and said, here's my ask. I want a discount on these 3 products. There are 3 main products. Give me something world-class with those 3. You can charge me whatever the hell you want for everything else. In return, I'm going to give you 40% more work this year. And I'll give all of that to you if you work with me on this. And that delighted them. They worked with me instantly. They gave me everything I wanted, but I followed up and I grew my business 40%. We're having that same conversation right now where we want to grow the business possibly 50% in the next year. And the same conversation is had. We will give you that business if you work with us on these few simple things. So store managers, paint reps, demand relationships and demand trust. And this is it's a business relationship, but it can also be a personal relationship. I love my paint reps very much. And painters, for the love of God, offer something to your store managers and your paint reps besides just buying a gallon every once in a while. Work with them to form a relationship. And if you ask for something, give them back something in return. And for the love of God, don't have a relationship where it's only you telling them to stand in front of a client and say that, oh, my painter didn't mess up, even when we know it's almost always human error. So we'll do a few more IG questions here. Thank you though for that. I do appreciate it. Green Mountain, on the topic of two coats, how much value do you think two coats being bring to an exterior repaint when there's minimal substrate failure, i.e. you're painting onto several existing coats of paint? Green Mountain, I love you guys. If you guys don't follow Green Mountain, for the love of God, follow them. They have one of the sexiest IG feeds you're ever going to see. So two coats does two things. Number one, it's by the technical data sheet. A lot of the times they recommend that because it adds a proper wear layer, proper depth of color, proper shine build. The reason we do two coats, like on interior walls, because technically you don't need any more protection. Number one, we want coverage, right? Like we want good coverage of color. We want an even shine build, but humans are not perfect. And even if you can do a 99% coat, one perfect coat, you're still leaving 1%. That opens you up to the client to say, this is not okay. So for all those reasons, I believe two coats is the standard there. I'm open to the idea that one coat can be done perfectly. Lord knows I've done it on interiors, on exteriors, on all sorts of other stuff as experiments. But humans are not perfect. And for the main reason that I don't think people can do a perfect coat of paint that covers 100%, even shine, even color. The likelihood of that happening every job for the rest of your life with one coat is very low, if I'm being honest. And that's why we do that. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. Paint school. The two coats is because there's a breakdown of paint over time. The mill thickness is likely the more important metric than two coats, but the paint literally dissolves over time. I love the conversation. Thanks, Mr. Nick. I'm Simon Maputa. Dude, from Zimbabwe. I love corresponding. Like the reach of this show is pretty interesting. We're talking to Joran on Facebook from the Netherlands. We're talking to a painter from Zimbabwe. And we've spoken before. I love your insight. I love following you. And thanks for watching the show. I appreciate it. Oh, Jason the painter from Minneapolis, sitting in his ritzy high-rise overlooking the sailboat lake watching Ask a Painter. I love it. So Green Mountain. Easy, have inventory, full stop. I know it's hard, but it's also the alpha omega as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, and again, I don't truly believe that a paint company does not want to sell us stuff. So I believe it's a little bit out of their hands, but we can all do better. That is a universal truth. I'm blessed with a large warehouse. Thanks for the feedback. Oh man, that's JC Finishing, Minnesota here. See what we got here. Oh, Green Mountain. Yeah, price barely matters to us. Relationship and inventory. Absolutely. Appreciate the response. JC, I will take it to heart and take better care of our customers. You may already be. I would demand more out of your clients, and painters demand more out of your reps, but have a relationship. So, Washington Painter. Good morning. I'm bass fishing as you watch this. Dude, that is great, man. Oh, I just absolutely love that. All right, back to Facebook here. Let's see what we got. All right, Mike Danny. Interior painting, exterior painting, and cabinets. Which is your most profitable for your company? Honestly, depends on the human. The right person, the right job, the right client, the right process. Anything can be insanely profitable. Wall painting, though. It's the easiest process we do. It's the most predictable. There's the least amount of variables, and we can get a person off the street with no experience at all to paint something, to paint a bedroom in about 4 hours with maybe one touch up at the end of 2 weeks of training. So that's not necessarily the case with exteriors or a full house trim job. So Mike, it would be wall painting. Wall painting is a great thing. And it's not that universally wall painting is easier. It's just that we focus on it so heavily as the basis of our apprenticeship program. It's like the entrance thing into painting. It teaches you a lot about painting. We focus so heavily on it, magically we're good at it. With time and effort, you'd be good at stuff. So Jolene, how's it going? Good morning from Pennsylvania. I'm a one-person shop and newer to the cabinet business. I've taken a cabinet class from Corey. Oh, yes. Corey and Denny. You found the right people. They are awesome people, but looking to learn more and expand. Any suggestions for classes or programs that are longer than a day? So good question. I actually have a master's class called The Perfect Kitchen, where I get into the molecular science of the coatings that we use. I go through my SOP, the process. I'm happy to share that with you. I'm happy to walk you through it. Right now, I would talk to Corey Leister, which you have already, but maybe there's something in there that's a little more in depth that they might be able to do. I know Corey is big on the 1 day sort of things. And if I'm being honest, I don't know that it would take more than a day to teach you what you need to know that you can't get with furthered experience. So here's the theory, Jolene. If you spent 3 days with me in my war room and we were doing some technical training here, and maybe even 1 day of the 3 days was down in my shop spraying stuff like that, you hit a point of diminishing returns where you're only going to further your skill and knowledge by actually getting out there and doing it in the real world. And I truly believe that the biggest bang for the buck is likely an 8 to 10 hour day where you throw in a little bit of technical, a little bit of theory, a little bit of SOP stuff, and then you just get out there and do it. And then eventually you come back after you have some experience, refresh with another 1 day, because now you've leveled up your game. You've got that base of knowledge. Now you have the next series of questions. So I truly don't believe that. And I think about this when I think about apprenticeship in my company. We have a 2-week program. I'm considering 3, but we're also arguing for and against that, because at that point, is 1 week of controlled training in my training facility more beneficial than just getting out there and doing this in the real world? And honestly, I don't know if I have that data point. I could make arguments for or against. So Jolene, Corey, and Denny are some of the best people you'll ever meet, the most knowledgeable, the most helpful. Continue to talk to them. I'm a resource here for you too if you need anything. So Michael Sharp, on a brick house, do I need to power wash the trim before paint? I would. I mean, if it needs it, great. If you wipe your finger on it and no chalk, no mildew, nothing comes off, you could make the argument that you could dry prep it. When in question, wash it. That's normally the thing. So, who's this guy? Jason Paris. Nick Slavik, what are your thoughts on affecting the industry beyond the self-selecting connected portion? Yes, this is something that Jason and I talked in depth about over the board meeting this last week. So this is something I struggle with. The Ask a Painter show, the PCA, Corey Leister's group. We cater to the people that selectively have social media accounts, find other painters, raise their hand, interact, and do that. It's a self-selecting bunch of people. We're not going out there and grabbing people and dragging them in, or a lot of times we're not actively going out there introducing people to this trade and what we do. You could argue that Corey Leister may be the best at this. 50,000, 75,000 members of just a cabinet painting group. She has the ability to reach out and grab more people than Ask a Painter can, that even the PCA can, for the love of God. So one thing that I'm very interested in is think about this in concentric rings, where you have the nucleus of this, which is the PCA and its members. Those are not only self-selecting people, they're self-selecting in a way where they'll even pay a membership due, and then they'll come to big, large organizational groups. They'll interact and they continue to grow their businesses. Within that nucleus is a super nucleus of like the board of directors, the people who not only are members of the PCA, but volunteer to guide strategy and principle and volunteer hundreds of hours every year to further the industry. Now, outside of that ring, in my mind, is the painter Facebook. And when I say painter Facebook, we're talking about Instagram. We're talking about all painters on social media. Those people, without any effort from the industry, have self-selected to create accounts and connect with other painters. I believe we need to start reaching out to more of them. I don't think a lot of people know about the PCA, Corey Leister's group, Denny Jans, who's an awesome painter from Minnesota here. He has groups as well. There's people out there operating who don't know about that. Outside of that, there's the entire painting industry. And I don't know if I believe the numbers or not, but supposedly 300,000 painting companies in the United States. Most of them don't know Facebook exists. Most of them don't know the PCA exists. Most of them don't know that the painter internet exists. They're just out there doing a paint company. They're a dodo bird evolving on their own on an untouched island somewhere, no connection with the outside world. Those concentric rings, the PCA first, they're already there. We have the painter Facebook, which is kind of there, but we haven't really sucked them in any farther. There's our industry, which is uncontacted. And then there's just folks. There's just people out there who don't even know the trades exist. The statistic that was given to me years ago is that only 1 to 2 to 3% of all millennials will even consider the trades. What that is not saying is 1 to 2 to 3% of the millennials get into the trades. That's they consider. Millennials are more likely to do something if their peers are doing it. So you can see this whole death spiral of chicken and egg thing. If there's no millennials here, millennials won't be interested. But if millennials there, millennials won't be interested. So you can see how that's kind of a death spiral there. So I believe we need to do a way better job of reaching outside and bringing people in. Now, my company does this, but I'm just one company. There is only one person who's operating as a painter in my company who has ever had painting experience before they came here or called themselves a painter or looking for a painting job. Everybody else, we've sort of set out a little trap and a net, and they were looking for a job. And I just happened to be there to pull the ripcord and say, hey, look over here. We got something pretty cool going on. 4-day work week, company yacht cruise, all this fun stuff, And yeah, that's how we do it. But I'm just one company. And I think our whole industry needs to set that little trap net out there and have something shiny and fun. So one of the things that Jason and I are working on with the PCA, and then this is the entire organization and the entire board. So I don't want to take credit for this, and Jason doesn't either. But just looking at the comments here. But one of the things that Jason and I are very interested in is that we want to reach out hard to not only PCA members, not only to the painter social media, not only to our industry, but the folks out there who are just don't even know this exists, that don't know those 3 other concentric rings even exist. The problem is if we bring all these people in here and there's nothing cool here for them, they'll all leave again. And then we've lost that whole opportunity. All that effort, money, time has wasted. So Jason and I, the rest of the board, the rest of the PCA, and people like Correa and Denny are trying to make cool stuff so that when we do get that critical mass of people here, we can keep them, we can interest them, we can inspire them. That's what this whole thing is about. So Jason, that's an all right question. No, good job, man. I always love talking with Jason. Oh, yeah. So interestingly enough, 2 of my favorite people in the industry are the 2 Jasons from Minneapolis. From there, we have Jason the painter and we have Jason Paris. You could not get 2 different humans, 2 different missions, 2 different goals. I love them to death because they both have one of the most interesting thought processes you'll ever see. So I know Jason the painter's watching on Instagram, different thought process. He's on Instagram. Jason Paris is on Facebook. I'll let you guys battle it out between who's the Jason, most famous Jason painter in Minnesota. But I love you guys both. So David Koger, good morning and great beard. Thank you very much. It's time for a trim, actually. When it starts getting a little crazy like that, it's time for a trim here. So how do you get over past frustration, or how do you get past or over frustration on a project? Unsatisfying answer. You earn or learn. You either earn money, make a happy client, everything works fine. If you don't earn those things, you learn and you never repeat it. So what I do is we IDS, identify, discuss, and solve. If a project doesn't go well, the worst thing you could do is not know why it went well and not make a path forward. All the unsexy things of business that you can do will prevent this. If you have a job description, if you have deliverables, if you have standards, if you have standard operating procedures, if you have a review process, if you have a SOP for tools and a way to conduct yourself in a client's house, it's likely that you won't run into that, but it doesn't prevent it 100%. If you don't have any of those things, I would not go much farther. I would go backwards, get all those things in place. Magically, you'll have less of this. But when something does come up with this, we IDS every project that does not go to plan. And we point to something. What was it? How was it? Why was it? And what can we do in the past? Is this an aberration? Is this just a crazy thing that we can't possibly make? There's an earthquake and the house fell over while we're painting it. That's not worth creating a standard operating procedure. But if it's one of those things where the client wasn't happy with the velocity of our communication, now we have to discuss, was that an unreasonable ask by a client, or was our velocity not up to par? And then we make a process around it. Then do we give that client updates every day? Do we do it every 3 days? Do we do it via email, text, call? So you can start talking with this, and it helps to have a team with that as well. They have great insight on a lot of that stuff. If you don't, you can still do it, but you just got to try stuff, and you have to keep lists. You have to write things down in order to never repeat that stuff. Lessons learned. That's what I would. So don't beat yourself up about it. Honesty is the best policy. And a lot of the times, we actually made a conflict resolution SOP decision tree for this reason. When a client, you're never going to not have clients who aren't happy. It's just a certain percentage. In my company, 1.1% are true PBC clients. People be crazy where this was always going to happen no matter what we did. If we did a Sistine Chapel job, gave it to them for free, they would have some complaints for us. And that just is what it is. Our callback rate is likely 5 to 7%. 5 to 7% of all jobs, somebody will say, hey, there's just one thing we want you to look at a job. We're very proud of that. That hits our goal, but it's not perfect. And that 5 to 7% is the thing that I think about the most, that I do not want to happen again. The problem is I don't know if you can make a system to prevent that 100% because of all the variables. So don't beat yourself up about it. Honesty is the best policy. And honestly, with our conflict resolution and SOP, the best thing you can do is not email the client, stand in their house and just say, I'm sorry we didn't meet your expectations. What can we do to make this right for you? Just tell me. And a lot of the times they'll actually tell you, and it's not unreasonable. And you do it, and it's a great relationship. And that you responded to them and that you were just open, vulnerable, and honest means a lot. And it means a lot to me when I have a complaint about something. All right, let's see Seth, how's it going? How much knowledge? I wish as many people watched you as the Idaho painter. Thanks. That's a nice compliment. I like him a great deal too. He's done some great things for this industry. There's a lot of people that we know and love from Painter Facebook, the Painter Internet, that learn to paint by firing up a bunch of YouTube videos from him. And it's a great thing. So Jim Dorf, how's it going, man? Need to do our booth segment someday. Absolutely. It's on my radar. I keep a list of, Jim, show topics. And I think that is number 4 on my list to do here coming up. So, Eric, how do you deal with background checks and or drug testing in the hiring process? So I don't do both. I don't do either. But we're considering doing background checks because I feel that that's the next step in professionalization in my company. We do actually drug test and chemical test people who have injuries on a job site. That's a standard operating procedure for most industries, that if somebody says, hey, I hurt myself on a job, I'm going to the hospital to get checked out, it's a standard operating procedure to have them tested for chemicals as well, just to make sure that they weren't under the influence of something. So I believe we're going to institute a background check this time. In the past, I've done ad hoc or informal background checks, which is you call previous employers, you do searches through the criminal justice system, and you check out social media. And a lot of the times, criminal record is the last thing. There's a lot of things that disqualify people that, by searching what you can on the internet or calling past references, that you can realize that they're not bad people. They just don't share your same core values. And they might be a great fit for another industry, another company, another job, another something. But for what we're looking for, they're just not a good fit. They're the wrong person, right seat, give or take. And that's something we all need to understand, which is when we don't hire somebody, it doesn't mean that they're unhireable or that they're bad people. It's that for us, for our processes, for our industry, for what we're looking for, they may just not be the right fit. And we can't take that personally. They can't take that personally. And humans are squishy, variable, irrational things, and nobody's perfect. It just kind of is what it is. So, all right, let's see what else we got here. David Koger, you are welcome. Let's see if we got any more IG, and then we'll probably call it a day here because I want to work on my deer blind and hang out with the kids. Here we go. The Washington Painter. Can you talk about professionalization and your take on everything from making Instagram stories to how you speak on social media, if it makes sense? So for me, social media is about 1% of true professionalization. Professionalization to me is the unsexy, mundane, sometimes boring stuff that all real businesses do, that if you can grit your way through them and get them and maintain them and constantly review and alter them, you will actually solve most business problems. Now, I have sent for free a sheet called Steps to Professionalization, the things that I'm doing right now to professionalize my business with great success. It's a list of stuff like provide a proven product so that you know that when you touch the inside or the outside of somebody's house or some structure, that you know that there's an outcome minus human error, that there's a deliverable, predictable outcome. If you can't provide a predictable outcome on a set of kitchen cabinets, don't go any farther. solve that coding stuff first. Then you start getting into writing that process down. That's a standard operating procedure. Then you got to have training behind that. Then you got to have a recruiting process. Who are you looking for? How are you going to get them in? How are you going to set the proper standards? How are you going to onboard them? How are you going to train them in your standard operating procedures? You got to have a goal setting and review process. Then we meet 4 times a year where we review how people are doing. You have to have standards in your company. You have to have a quantifiable light switch option. You either did or you didn't for everybody in your company to know if they won. Otherwise, you're in a feelings-based argument. I've been here a year. I deserve another $1 an hour. I feel that you haven't done all the things you need to do to get that $1. And if you can't point to anything, then it's 2 feelings-based arguments, and everybody's got a valid point at that time. But if you say you can't miss more than 2 weeks a year, you have to produce at $55 an hour. You have to follow all the standard operating procedures. Your uniform has to look like this. Those are things that you either did them or you didn't do them. And then you can mentor and coach people on them. Now, there's about 9 or 10 steps to this in the professionalization. Those are kind of the basic ones. You got to have an employee manual. You got to have job descriptions. You got to have all this stuff. If you don't have this and you're struggling with problems in business, do that stuff first. Magically, you're going to get a lot of your problems solved by that simple thing. Job costing is another big one too. If you've never job costed, stop everything you're doing. Nothing else matters. Don't start looking into more apps. Don't start looking into crazy imported Italian codings, new things you haven't tried. Job cost first. Job costing, the simple information you'll get from job costing will solve or be the basis for solving almost every single problem you're going to experience in business, even human problems. So Instagram stories, social media, all that other stuff. Another unsatisfying answer. Post a lot, post valuable content, and be consistent. If you make one big sort of like moonshot every year where I'm going to revamp my Instagram, I'm going to post 100 different things, and then you're silent for 3 months, you have failed. Post constantly. If I could create the magic formula for social media, I would say post 2 to 3 times a day. Be on message, make it interesting, be genuine to yourself. Don't emulate anybody else. Whatever you're interested in, make your social media platforms a reflection of your interests and what's unique to you. Be consistent. Don't ever stop. Keep hammering. Ask a Painter is a perfect example of that. I think for about a year or two, I don't know that anybody ever watched Ask. I mean, yes, they did. Fine. People watched it, but I didn't get paid for it. Didn't generate any income. Didn't really generate a lot of value outside of a experiment for myself. I know that people watch it and it's fine. But honestly, it's years of doing that weekly. I probably had 104 episodes before I started connecting with industry, with partners, getting underwriting for the show and everything else. If you're not willing to slog it out for 2 years every week on a Saturday, even now, never missed a show in 5.5 years, you're not going to be successful at that. So I would just say genuine consistency, consistent genuineness, something like that is probably the best way. It's unsatisfying. There's not a company fine. There's companies that can optimize it, but for the dollar amount you're going to pay them, you're not going to see a big difference in that stuff. It's just block and tackle consistency, give or take. Harpeth Painting. Love you guys. Thanks for watching on Instagram. Got lots of people watching on Instagram this morning. Thank you guys so much. All right, folks, this will be, here we go. 2 more questions on Facebook, then we'll call it a day. Michael Courthampton. Do you use a different hose on your sprayer dedicated to oil, or do you just clean the hose after spraying oil? We do not. We have shop manager Brandon probably has a better lay of the land on this stuff, but we probably have 20 sprayers, 18 to 20 sprayers in the company. We use them for oil, for water, for everything. I know when Brandon does shop work, a lot of the time he'll have oil primer already in a sprayer, and he sprays a lot of our cabinet doors and passage doors and things like that. I don't honestly change out hoses. Hoses is the thing I don't change because that's just another weird variable. We just wash them out okay. And if I'm being honest, I have done things called hot loading in my past. Like you're on an exterior, you did a whole bunch of oil primer, and you know what? You don't have enough thinner with you. You have some thinner. You don't want to take the time to clean a sprayer. I don't recommend this. Sprayer companies don't recommend this, but I've done things called hot loading where you shoot out as much oil primer as you can. You maybe run a little thinner through, you shake out the filter, you do some stuff. You maybe run a little soapy water through, you shoot that out, but it's not really all that. You still kind of got some milky water. You load up your exterior paint, you shoot about a quart through into a slop bucket, and you know what? You paint the house, and I've never had a failure. Yes. What I'm saying is there still will be some amount of oil primer in that gun, in that hose, in that filter, but you know what? It's never been a problem. I wouldn't recommend it for interior stuff. On exteriors, fine, give or take. If you're doing 2 coats anyway, it's okay. I've never had a failure. I've never had a color, finish, adhesion problem with that stuff. I do know that when apprentices don't clean out sprayers very well. And one of the funniest things happened. We had a young apprentice, a seasonal guy who's a really good leader. We still have him, but we taught him how to spray one summer, and we taught him how to clean out sprayers the best we could. And we put him on a bunch of painting projects. And at the end of the summer, I pulled out the filter on his Titan 440, and it looked like a Willy Wonka everlasting gobstopper psychedelic mixture of about 8 different paint colors. And he was going from project to project to project spraying. There was always a little residual left in the filter on the actual pump itself. He got enough out to where it didn't affect the next paint. But when you finally took that filter out, he didn't know to clean that filter, even after instruction. It was all sorts of colors in there. And you know what? It didn't affect anything that he did. We didn't have any callbacks on those jobs. We had no adhesion, color, shine problems. And you know what? It lets you know the boundaries of this paint. Paint is wonderful. It's almost foolproof. Humans are always a problem. And yeah, it just is what it is. But it's good to know what you can get away with. It's also good to know what the standard is, which is take everything apart, clean it out, use a proper solvent, soapy water, get all that stuff out, put a lubricant in there, and then get your new coating in there so you don't have any problems. All right, let's see what else we got here. Michael Crane, what's the best way to catch a shark? All right, Michael Crane. So I'm dialing in my shark. Michael and I went to the Surf Prep Influencer Retreat, and we attempted shark fishing out there. I am a very novice shark fisherman, but when I bring my family to this island in the Gulf of Mexico, there are lots of sharks. And this year I caught off my little dock at night. The routine is we put the kids to bed. I go down to the dock. I fire up podcasts. I listen to music and bring a cooler full of Coronas down there. And in the dark, I shark fish every night, and I'm learning. I now have a monster reel. I got a big, fishing rod this big. We got 80-pound braided. We got crazy steel leaders, and I catch fish and crabs and things during the day to use as bait at night. Big old hooks. And I've been found that the success with shark fishing has almost everything to do with tackle because these things are crazy animals. And every year I go down there, I learn something new. So 12-foot steel leader, 80-pound braided line, super stout rod, big old clicker reel. And the last improvement I made was the 12-foot steel leader because I kept snapping off lines, even with crazy, crazy amounts of braided line that's super high strength. And a local person down there said, hey, you need no. Somebody from Facebook, a painter friend, actually said, hey, man, you've been saying you've been snapping lines. Your steel leaders are not long enough. That shark whips its tail around and that tail just slices that crazy braided line off all the time. So I used a longer leader and I caught a bonnet shark, a little hammerhead shark off there. So Michael, that's the secret. I keep improving my tackle every year. And it's crazy when you're sitting on these docks. These docks have little pier lights on them so that the fish are attracted and you get a whole bunch of snook and redfish and stingrays and stuff around there. So it's kind of like this cool little lighted dock porch pergola sort of thing. But it's got rod holders on it too. So I'll take that big old Penn clicker reel, Abu Garcia clicker reel. I'll toss a 4-ounce lead weight with a crab, a fish head, or something with a big old crazy circle hook. And pretty soon it's set on a clicker setting. So you hear that rod do one of there, you see the rod do this, and then all of a sudden, and you hear the clicker on the reel going. And you let it out a little bit. The second it pauses, you grab it and you set the line. And then normally that super stout rod goes all the way down. You fight it for 30 seconds and the tail whips around and hits the line. But I was lucky enough to get a hammerhead this year here. So we will do that again, Michael Crane. I'm very interested in shark fishing. I think the last time we were at the island, the time before this last time, you throw it out there, you leave a fish head on the bottom, crazy stuff eats it. I pulled up a spider crab that was legitimately about 3 foot wide. It had that crazy alien body with these big old kind of spider things like this. And sea monsters, man, coming from Minnesota, you get bass, you get walleye, you get pike, and you get sunfish and perch. In the ocean, I see 3 animals I didn't know exist every time I go fishing out there. So, all right, folks, That's all we have for today. Thank you everybody for watching. Family time for me. We're going to work on our awesome deer blind and everything out there. And oh, Shelton, never missed a show. Thanks a lot. So thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate this stuff. I just love it. And thank you. If you want more talk like this, sweet Jesus, go find the PCA, the Painting Contractors Association. What this board of directors is starting for initiatives and following through with initiatives, you do not want to miss. The basis of standards in our entire industry, the basis of painter training, the basis of business training is all started and going to be followed through and being delivered in the near future for this industry. And you want to be a part of that for sure. So thank you guys. Have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you later.